Okay, we call the meeting of Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, the North WPCA to order. It is 5:30 PM and a quorum is present. And we'll move directly to item number 2, approval of the meeting minutes of the WPCA held on December 19th. Is there a motion, December 19th, 2022? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
By Mr. Igneri on a first. Are there any comments, questions, or corrections? I'll assume everybody had a chance to review them. Can I please see hands and an eye for,
Aye.
okay, Ostafine, Bovee, Burnett, Smith, Igneri. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 3, is there a motion to authorize the Water Pollution Control Authority to approve final acceptance of the 290 feet of sanitary sewer main and 3 manholes on Sear Hill as a public sanitary sewer?
So moved.
Okay, by Mr. Igneri. Are there any comments or presentation by staff?
I can just give a brief on what has been happening. As you guys know, last year, the board approved some standards that now we follow when a developer want to develop a private sewer and then to the city as public. So this was one of the projects. To be honest, this actually started before we have that in practice. So what we are doing now is just the end part that is having the board to approve that to become a public asset. So DPW reviewed the drawings, the WPCA reviewed the drawings. It was built as designed. We have everything that we believe that is according to the plans. So DPW is really supporting the WPCA to take ownership of that part of the extension of the sewer and make it public as well. I just want to, there is just a little caveat, a little piece of that letter, well, that now it will be actually a main. It is inside the private property, but the developer has already submitted a drawing showing that will be a easement will be granted to the city so we can have access for maintenance.
Very good. Are there any questions from commissioners? No. I have one question. Is there a possibility for any other connections, or this was installed and now that it's installed, it's serving all the people that can connect to it?
The original line already served everybody on that street. This developer is on a dead end street, and that's why the sewer has to be extended really to be able to serve that parcel.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any other questions? It sounds like the city is very happy with the product and willing to take it over. Motion on the floor, we'll call the question. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's Ostafine, Bovee, Igneri, Smith, and Burnett. That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Hello, Vanessa. Goodbye, Vanessa.
Okay, item number 4. It is 5:34. Authorize the chairman or vice chairman of the Water Pollution Control Authority to execute the November 8, 2022 Veolia consent letter copy attached. Is there a motion to approve? Mrs. Smith gets it. Presentation by staff.
Sure, Darren, I'll take it. There's not much to say about it. It's more internal organization by Veolia, but because the way our contract's worded, anytime they do these structural modifications, they have to just note, they're required to notify the WPCA. We had Vero Law review it, understand it, and there's really no action that needs to be taken outside of just authorizing the chairman or the vice chairman to sign off on the letter. Matt is here from Vero Law. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say to the board or include.
Ralph, I think that covers it, other than I guess the provision is in the agreement. And, if another opportunity like this came forward in the future where there was some additional reason for us to request certain things in a transition, then we could still do that. But at this point in time, we're executing the letter as is.
Thank you, Attorney Tadaro. Any other questions from staff or? No. Everybody's good? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Austin, Bowlby, Ignary, Smith, Burnett passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 5, it's 5:36. The motion to schedule a public hearing for proposed FY 23-24 sewer rates on February 21st, 2023 at 5:30 PM. That's an easy one. Come on. Mr. Bovee. Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ostafine, Bovee, Ignary, Smith, Burnett. I'm sorry, unless anybody has any questions, but we're just scheduling a public hearing, right? Okay, item number 6. Is there a motion? No, we don't need a motion. It's just a presentation, right, Ralph?
That is correct.
Okay.
And we have the Witter and Kern team here to provide a presentation based off our financial model that we've recently updated.
Okay. Then please proceed. We'll ask for questions later.
Just sharing screen there. Is that coming through?
Yes.
Yes.
Just
Excellent.
before
Thank
we
you.
pass, I'm sorry, before we start with Woodard and Curran, I just wanna open. Just saying that what the board will see now, it is really the financial plan that, for those that are new to the board, it is presented to the board on a yearly basis. The reason that we do that is that we take in consideration all the revenues and all the expenses, and also particularly not only operation costs that we have, but in this particular year, all the capital future plans that we have, particularly considering all the updates that we need to do to be able to meet all the permits requirements, and also the plan that we are considering for the update of the plan,
Collection system master plan and the treatment plan.
and the treatment plan. Thank you. So, Woodard and Kern was able to get all these numbers, and what we are doing is that we are projecting all the costs for the next few years and what will be the impact of them. It's also very important for you guys to see that we do have, as of today, a healthy balance, but we are trying to really, the goal is to have like almost a flat expense and extra money in many years from now. So the right thing is, where is the right rate that will be able to balance that? So what we're gonna go through now is really show you guys what is this financial plan, what are things that we take in consideration, what are the new projects, and what will be the costs associated, that some of them you guys have already approved. We do not have a number yet on how much the update for the treatment plant will cost, so we are using as a placeholder. We believe that that is a good option, considering that this plan gets updated every year. And with that, we are suggesting a rate that you guys are gonna see on what we're planning to, in our next meeting, ask you guys to vote. And that's why you have just a public hearing, just to schedule as your last item that you approve, so we can approve that rate that we're gonna talk about it now, and how we came up with that rate. So we're gonna pass to Woodard and Kern so they can start the presentation, but I also just wanna let you guys know that we already run the financial plan and this model for the mayor, as well with the CFO. The CFO was even present in the call, and I believe that we were able to adjust all their questions and concerns, and you guys are gonna see now what we are proposing.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Vanessa. Great introduction, and leads into, did want to start by acknowledging the project team. Really was a collaborative effort with, you know, the WCBCA, DPW, Vanessa, Ralph, Nelia, very involved, as well as looped in with the finance department, CFO Dakowitz, who's here with us today, and his team had some great feedback. And so I'm Ken Kohlbrenner, regional manager with Woodard and Kern, managing the project. Also have with us Anthony Catalano, one of our senior principals, and Jim Aiken, who was instrumentally involved in putting together this model. And so wanted to just give, as Vanessa mentioned, some background for those who may be new to the board since you know, this was last presented, to go through what's been updated, and then ultimately where we're landing with the annual rate recommendations. So as way of background, this model was originally developed for the WCPCA in 2021 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. And we've carried a lot of the same base assumptions for this update for the 2023-24 fiscal year around the debt service coverage ranges, as well as timing of proposed rate increases, and that will be paying for those capital improvement projects with general obligation bonds. On those bonds, we're modeling it at a 4.1% rate over a 30-year term. And we've also carried some different escalation rates for some of the categories of the annual expenses to account for some of those cost increases. This was a lot of the discussion around, you know, what should those rates be? What should the bond rates be? What is the bond market moving in the future? And so recognizing that this is what we have in now, they are adjustable, and also something, as Vanessa mentioned, intend to continue to update this going forward. So if as we get more clarity around, you know, certain rates and changes can account for that. So the plan really focuses on a 5-year period through 2028, starting with this fiscal year, and starting with the revenues and expenses that were in the WPCA's approved budget. So starting with that, projecting that forward in terms of the operational costs based on those increases, looking at the existing debt service that's being carried, and then building in the future capital costs. And so we see those, you know, costs increasing year over year, especially, you know, as we get further out with some of the large projects that need to be completed in the future. And you'll see we, as I mentioned, the focus is over the next 5 years, but did carry the model out even a couple years further. That was one of the changes, you know, as we worked with the team, wanted to identify to account for that, as we know we need some longer range planning. And so you'll see that carried out, but again, we have the most clarity over the next several years, and then, you know, continued anticipated adjustments going forward. And further then on the revenue side, you know, took the approach of, you know, carrying the same, you know, customer accounts and flows. And so the revenue generated for that, as well as the town of Wilton constant. So carrying that same revenue projections going forward. We know there's been some variability with, you know, flows and, you know, through COVID, but, you know, felt that was a reasonable assumption to move forward. And so with that, then, you know, building in the capital improvement plan really being the main input for the model. And so what we, you know, got here from the team is a capital improvement plan going out further, the 25.9 million in black of already approved projects that are in the works or underway, and those the construction cost estimates associated with that. And then in red, another 46.8 million of planned capital projects over the next 5 years. Again, seeing where that focus is, but then knowing, as Vanessa mentioned, there's additional needs that will be coming due and referenced here as part of the consent order with Connecticut Deep, as well as the collection system master plan and facilities plan. We started building in some placeholders there for the collection system rehabilitation and carrying, here now 25 million for the treatment plant improvement. But again, anticipate there will be, further needs beyond that. And so wanting to understand how do we need to set the rates to maintain an appropriate fund balance. And so here's just a look at, what that means. In the red, we see the existing debt service. So that's the bonding that's already been incurred by the WPCA, and anticipate obviously that decreasing as we move forward, but then, starting to be offset with some larger requirements as we head out over the next 5 years, so focusing on, what we need to do for, continued repair and replacement reserve, as well as the larger, treatment plant improvement projects and the, more of the collection system rehabilitation based on the master plan. And so what we're trying to then get from that are the, anticipated rate increases with the, several objectives in terms of meeting or exceeding, a target for operating cash reserve, meeting or exceeding the debt service coverage targets, and funding the annual operating expenses. And so what we've projected is a 3.5% for this year, and then 4% for the following years, and can look at, how that projects forward. And so what we've done is we showed the capital improvement plan. This was a piece that we built in to help the WPCA as they're coordinating with finance in terms of when is that bonding going to be required there in the yellow. And so, trying to keep up with the project spending, and that'll be some ongoing, work with Ralph and the WPCA team to be coordinating with Henry and his team on the cash flow requirements. And so that was a new update again this year to help improve that functionality and make this even more of a living model and useful tool for the team going forward. And so I mentioned the funding, or the fund reserve, the cash reserve target, and that's what we see there is the red line, and that's set as a 9 months of total annual operating costs. And so we see that as expected increasing as our annual costs go up along with that debt service. And in blue we see the current fund balance. And so we have a rather healthy fund balance, as Vanessa mentioned, of just under 26 million, and see that based on then what happens with the rate increases, and the purple, as we start to head below zero, there is showing, projecting further out, starting to show a slight deficit coming in. And so that's where we're wanting to keep that balance of, maintaining the rates to, cover the ongoing and increased costs, as well as managing that reserve balance responsibly. And so that's part of the reason for projecting further out. We see that by 2029, 2030, we start to cross over and start to run below the projected target for that fund balance. And even with that, continual 4% rate increase. And so this is what it means for then the residential single family rates over the next several years, in terms of dollars for that, anticipated annual charge, and those, increases going forward. And so to summarize, as I mentioned, the 3.5% initially and then 4% rate increases to cover those total annual costs in that second row. And can see, there we have some, more substantial increases in terms of those annual costs going up for the operating costs, as well as, covering that debt service, 6.8, 6.6, 9.6, percent. So trying to mitigate managing that fund balance to keep the rate increases reasonable. And so that second to last line, the ending cash investments, where we start to see that, tapering off. And, the 270 days or the 9-month, target for the cash on hand. And so see this as a plan to, get toward that while, taking into account and or accounting for the capital improvement projects that will need to be completed. And so with that, went through quickly, but happy to take some questions or discussion.
I can't see if anybody's raising their hand. I don't see everybody. Wait, hold on one second.
I can.
Okay,
stop
now I
sharing.
can. Now I can. Does anybody have any questions?
John
Mr. Igneri.
We're doubling our debt over a period of what, 5-6 years? How is that going to impact our general obligation rating? And, I find the projected rate increase of 4%, it's flat. I can't believe that will happen. But then again, after, I don't know if you could forecast rates more than 2 or 3 years from now. So on one hand, I'm uncomfortable with the 4% flat rate. On the other hand, I understand it. So I'm not sure if you could offer more explanation as to how you came up with that rate.
I can add a little bit to that. So, Mr. Igneri, what we're trying to do here is try to establish what may be a placeholder for the future years that will give us a good outcome of the model. Again, what we are trying to focus now is to understand what will be the minimum rates that can keep us in a healthy financial situation in the next few years and be able to really meet all the investments and the operational costs that we need to do. So as of this year, we are comfortable saying that we can really support a 3.5% raise. Next year, we have as a placeholder of 4%, but that number will probably change after we know exactly how much will be the investment on capital with the update of the treatment plant. And that's when we're going to run the model again. And probably next year, maybe 4% will be the right number. It can be maybe a little low if the investment is not that good, or it may need to be a little bit higher. And that's when we're going to start adjusting, because you're correct. It's very hard to go more than 1 or 2 years. So
Exactly, yeah.
so although we are looking, but we have to have some type of a placeholder to know that, okay, even if we are able to keep a flat rate of 4%, we'll be able to pay our obligations. That's what we're trying to accomplish on the future years now.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying in 24, 25, if rates are 6 or 7%, you'll reevaluate the projects.
Well, I don't think that we can evaluate the projects, because what happened is that we already have a commitment with DEEP that we're going to do those projects.
Okay.
So at least for the next few years, because we have to meet the consent order. Beyond that, correct. So after that period and those projects are completed, yes, we would only adjust the projects based on the rate that we want to do it. But now we have this obligation that we need to fulfill. So that's why we're doing the opposite this time, at least for the next 4 years. And,
Okay.
and that's when, before in the model, we show where that expense will happen. So there are a couple of years that there is a much higher expense, and then we drop to our regular just capital improvements that is not as high as 15 million, 10 million, 12 million. we'll go back to our like 2.5, 3 million average as we were doing. Another thing, just to address your first question in regards to bonding. What the bonding who does is really finance. But what happened is that with that model, he can already also predict how they're gonna borrow the money, because he borrowed for the whole city in some aspects. And there is a caveat that I'm gonna add to that. But what happened is that this way they can see, okay, WPCA may need $10 million bonded in year 27, 28. But guess what? Now maybe the rates are better on 25, 26. Maybe they're gonna bond on that year. Or maybe there is already enough money that they can push another year. So that helps them also plan on the overall. One thing that is not showing the model, because we want to be extremely conservative, is that there is a chance that some grants may be applied to help minimize the capital costs to update the treatment plant. We are not using those numbers there yet. First, because we do not know the cost, and second, we do not know if we're going to be able to get the grant. We believe that probably a year from now, we're going to have a better answer for that, and we're going to adjust the model again. Another thing that we have as an option is that also through the water quality grant, we may be able to borrow that money on a 2% rate as of today. And then will be up to the finance to decide if they want to borrow the money through this kind of grant, fixed rate, or there will be better rates that they can go with their triple bond. So in other words, we are a little bit comfortable that although there will be these commitments, we're not going to really have a major impact on the city bonding, because there are a couple of options for the WPCA to also get some of that money.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I see also CFO Dakowitz has raised his hand. I wonder if in
Yeah.
response to some of the bonding.
Thank you. John, you and Vanessa and Ken have all mentioned the difficulty and challenges of forecasting, which
Yes,
compound every year that you go out. Interestingly, just in the last 6 weeks, municipal bond rates have come down. The last 3 summers that we borrowed money, it was at 1.75%, 2.0%, and last summer 3.6%. Rates have come down recently to the point where we might even be able to borrow at a similar 3.6% rate this summer if we keep going. Let me make a point that I've made numerous times when I talk about the city's borrowing. We have to make a distinction between when a capital program is approved and when we borrow the funds. When funds are borrowed on a tax-free basis, the IRS has very strict rules. Because the investors who are lending us this money get a federal tax break and do not have to pay federal income taxes on the interest they earn, we pay a lower interest rate. The rules then say, in broad generalizations, 2 rules. 1, you're not allowed to borrow more money than you need to spend. And 2, you're not allowed to borrow money for longer periods of time than you need for the construction. Then there are hundreds and hundreds of pages of interpretations and getting down to the fine lines. So what I do now is we do a cash forecast. Everyone who has a capital project under them does a rolling 2-year forecast quarterly that tells me when they expect to spend money, when they expect to get reimbursements, let's say from state grants, what's the net cash outflow by quarter. On one hand, I don't want to have too little funds when the construction managers say, I have to build this during the summer. I issued purchase orders, I have invoices, please pay. At the same time, I don't want to have too much funds on hand and violate the IRS rules. So this model to me is heaven because, I'm sorry, there's some noise in the background.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you're not speaking, can you please make sure you're on mute?
okay.
Thank you. So what happens is we're not sure what the costs of the projects are going to be. We recently had an RFP open up, and the lowest bid was significantly higher.
I'm sorry for the noise. The only people I see who are not muted is Bovee, now Cobus, so Bovee, you're by yourself, right, John?
Correct.
Okay, I don't know where the noise is coming from. I see,
Sweeney,
Right.
could you mute yourself, please?
I'm gonna mute myself too.
Thank you. Okay, sorry. So we had a recent bid opening where the lowest bid was significantly higher than what the authorized capital was for the project. And that's part of the inflation that we're dealing with, and some of those prices are going up every month or two. So we're not sure what the project cost is going to be, really. We're not sure what the reimbursement will be. We're not 100% sure of the timing. It depends on sometimes how we contract. So there are a lot of variables. We're not sure whether we're going to generate a surplus or not. So, I mean, there's an argument that says that the days cash on hand should come down faster. And we should not raise rates as high as we're doing until we get to the 270 area. Okay, but until we run and see how much cash we generate, we won't adjust it. I think 3.5% is a very good target rate for this year. And then let's see what develops. Regarding the interest rates, it's a weird situation. As a separate authority, the way the rating agencies look at the request for bond money, if for at least 3 years, the authority has paid all its own bills and doesn't need money from the city, then they look to the authority's financial statements only, and they don't bother us. And right now you have AAA bond rating. Having said that, technically the city borrows this money and then gives it to the authority, and the repayments come back to us as part of our whole debt service schedule. One of the concerns and issues I have is that the city is getting dangerously close to jeopardizing its AAA bond rating. And that might affect you because we borrow the money on your behalf, usually tag along. Except for that, everything that Ken and Vanessa had said is right on target. I think the key, if I take a step back overall, we're trying to set reasonable expectations with some good planning. We don't want to have to go up 7% one year and then it's only 2.5% the next year and no one knows what their bills are going to be. This model allows us to play with the variables so that we can try to frame it properly. So, John, I had the same issues when I saw 4.1% as a borrowing rate a couple of months ago. And I said, oh my God, I'm not sure we're even going to get that this coming year. Now, I feel much more comfortable, but it's a placeholder. As we see what happens with the market, there's a good argument to say inflation is starting to come down, although 3 or 4 months is not a trend enough for me. But at the same time, there are many indications of recession. With recession, traditionally interest rates come down, but the Fed is rigging the system and goosing up the interest rates. So I think what we tried to do is build the model. Ken's team built the model. We've tested, poked, and probed to make sure all the variables are there and we all understand. Let's run it for a year, see what happens in the real world, both within the confines of the WPCA environment, as well as the environment of Connecticut and the United States for the economy. And then we can go from there. So I hope that answers some of the questions.
Anybody have any other questions?
Don, you were
Mr.
muted.
Constantine?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just curious, looking at the revenue from Wilton, being projected out that it was a steady 600,000. And I'm just curious as to why that was not reflecting these increases, presuming that they too would be, they too would be paying higher rates as the years go by.
Hey, Neil, let me answer this one, I guess. Each year they provide us their flow data. That flow data and the treatment plant flow data is looked at. It's a 5-year average, and it's based on a percentage of our flow. That information is used and provided to the finance department, then goes through a formula that's in the interlocal agreement between the city of Norwalk and Wilton. That formula calculates their portion of the sewer use fee based on a bunch of variables that go in that come from the budget. So for right now, we assume 600,000 as a placeholder. Once we have a little bit more of an idea of where their flow is headed and our flow, because our flow is going down, their flow is going up a little bit, so it's bouncing. It's, 1 year we might be at 580, next year we might be at 620. We kind of averaged it out for projection wise right now. We don't have a good sense to start defining, okay, it's 620 this year, next year is going to be 640, then 670. So we kind of just averaged it out as a placeholder.
But I presume that their rates will increase similar to the Norwalk taxpayer rate increase, or in some form.
Their rates are based on their needs. They have a collection system. I don't know if they have any pump stations, but one of their big bills is the bill that we send them in about $600,000 a year that they have to consider for their rates.
Can I make a comment? I think
Yeah.
the issue is that the total dollars is equal to the flow they use times the rate. And I get the sense that you've analyzed the flows, and it looks like with averages, pluses and minuses, the flow is about the same. But I think Mr. Constantine's question is, if our taxpayers are going up 3.5 or 4% per year, if the flows were constant, wouldn't Wilton be charged the increase in that fee?
Their system, so yes, they're going up to about the 3.5% based off our budget, but then they have other variables on their end that we don't see. Because their flow to Norwalk is all gravity to the treatment plant. So there's no pump stations that are included in their cost. It's only the treatment plant cost and the other operating expenses.
Let me try.
Yes.
Are we gonna raise Wilton's rate, or it's already predetermined in the agreement between us and Wilton?
It's a predetermined based on the formula with a bunch of variables that go in.
Okay, so it's not as simple as the flow meter at the town line. There's other things to consider, and it might not be a higher bill 1 year after the next. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay,
So because it changes and varies, can be less than 600 and more than 600, we are averaging 600 for the next 2 years
okay.
as a placeholder.
Does that do it for you, Mr. Constantine?
It does. I would just hate to think that the Norwalk taxpayers are subsidizing Wilton's,
I think,
sewage processing. It doesn't sound that way, but it's.
I think the people at the conference table there would never let that happen.
Yeah.
Correct.
Um,
Wilton's actually in the process of trying to reduce their flow because there's a cap. There's a capacity cap. So they're trying to reduce their flow. So if they take on additional connections, they have space under their cap.
Thanks, Ralph.
Any other questions on item 6? I assume we did all this, and I'm assuming on the, what was it? In February, 21st, you are going to propose a 3.5% increase in the rate, and then for this year.
That is
Right.
correct.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Yes, I have my hand raised.
I'm sorry, Mr. Burnett, I didn't see.
Yeah, referring to the chart that is being displayed currently, and it might have been covered, but can you provide additional narrative as to in fiscal year 26-27, the $23 million projected capital expenditure jump from 4.9 to 23?
That's Burnett. I can,
9 to 20.
Ken, how about if I start and then you can add?
Sounds great.
With the consent order and other capital expenditures that we anticipate spending in the treatment plant, we're looking to, within 10 years, spend around 50 million right now as a placeholder. So in fiscal year 26-27, a portion of that anticipated capital expenditure starts actually cash flow going out. And then years beyond that, we're going to be spending. But right now, we're waiting, we're in the process of updating our facility plan for the treatment plant. That's going to be finalized in June of this year. We're going to finalize our projects and estimated costs. So that information will go into the model late when we refine it at the end of 2023 for the next fiscal year. Right now, that's just a projection. So that 23 million may move forward a little bit or move out a little bit, depending on how we anticipate expenditures from that treatment plant projects.
And just to show you, this was the capital plan. So, you're seeing some of the larger projects, hitting, in that time frame. 26-27, here's the treatment plant, 27, 15 million. So as Ralph said, it's based on how it's, projected right now, may shift, as we get closer to those dates.
You done, Mr. Burnett?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Igneri.
The increases in the previous chart in a few years, is that due to the modernization of our equipment or the updating of our equipment? How much of that is because of the increase in the number of apartments and homes we have in the city? In other words, a growth in the population.
The treatment plant flow is not, we're looking at that too as part of the facility plan. We're looking out the next 10, 20 years for growth. We've met with planning and zoning. We've documented big projects or redevelopment projects that are going to go online. So as these projects go online, flow does increase. However, some of these areas is old infrastructure, meaning it's old buildings, they're taken down, rebuilding. So water use is actually less. The other thing that we're continuing to do with our collection system is rehab it. So we're continuing to reduce inflow and infiltration, which is extraneous flow to the treatment plant. So our goal is also to reduce flow to the treatment plant. So you have a bunch of variables that are occurring. One, we're trying to reduce flow to the treatment plant. There's still growth in the city. Ultimately, we're trying to keep the treatment plant flow flatline or even slowly decrease flow to the treatment plant over the next 5 to 10 years and beyond.
Okay. Thank you.
But I guess, John, just to add on to it, what we're looking to do besides the consent order on wet weather treatment at the treatment plant, we're also continuing to invest into our biggest asset, aging equipment. So the aeration process we're looking at, the last upgrade was in the 1990s. That's why we're, doing the study currently of the facility plan to evaluate the aeration tanks, the final settling tanks, some of the sludge pumping and aging infrastructure. Again, this is all from the 1990s. We want to reinvest with the latest technology and improvements. So that way you put another, you're prolonging the life of the treatment plant 30 to 50 years based on what you install.
And our maximum capacity on flow is still What is that, Ralph?
It's 18 MGD, and Veolia is actually going to show a slide where we are currently. We have a rolling average, but I want to say we're around 12, a little below 12 MGD for the rolling average. But we have a chart each month that they present to show the capacity between the 16.2, which is a critical, where if our 180-day rolling average of flow at the treatment plant hits 16.2 MGD, we have to notify the state in accordance with our permit that, hey, we're at 90% of capacity. We're well below that number. We're, like I said, we're around 12 MGD.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on item number 6? No? Okay, there was no motion necessary. So we'll move on to contract reports, contract operation report. It is 6:16. 6:16.
Sorry, guys. Moving in on you, I'm trying to be as loud as possible. Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. We had a pretty quiet month. There was a lot of people on vacation with the holidays and all, but we did get quite a bit done, and we had a couple of highlights that we wanted to talk about. Our team was awarded a regional health and safety award for excellence in their safety awareness. And this is something that actually came from our pump station inspection crew, and I thought it was worthy to share with the group. We have a team of folks that go out and inspect all 25 pump stations on a daily basis. Very thorough inspection. They go into wet wells and pump rooms, and they noticed at the Westport Ave pump station that there was a situation that, although it wasn't, hazardous, it required additional safety measures to go in and out daily. And on their own, they came up with some ideas to put some improved safety railing in and some other safety precautions that they really made the job safer and made it a lot faster and more efficient. So we thought that was such a great idea. We submitted it to a regional safety program that we have, and it won. So it was exciting. And the best part was the award that we won was that the regional director of health and safety had to come down to the project and cook our staff lunch. So Beth Murphy, our regional director, came down and we had a nice cookout in December. So I thought that was kind of a nice thing to share with everybody. I think Deli talked about this a little bit last month, but we continue to evaluate the drone inspection of the force main. We've utilized the drone technology once again to do flyover on the surface of our force mains. And we've actually got some preliminary information back, and we've got a lot on the agenda tonight. So, but next month, we're going to show you some of the graphics and the imagery that's coming back. And it's quite amazing that you're able to see where the locations of the pipes are and storm drains and the force mains themselves just by this thermal scan of a drone that took a matter of hours to do. So interesting stuff on that. We'll talk more next month. Our team was able to complete 2 miles of TV inspection. Only about a little under a mile of sewer cleaning, but we're in good shape in both those year to date, and we'll have our new truck in March as well, so we'll be able to really increase the jetting. We also did 31 IPP inspections, and we continue to take septic in from Stanford while their systems are being rebuilt. We had excellent compliance in December. We were in compliance with all of our parameters. Flow was up a little bit. We were up to 12.5 for the month of December, but the 180-day average was still at 10.6, which, as Ralph mentioned, is steadily declining. In fact, on the page 3 of your report is the graph. I realize, Ralph, I'm here in person, so I won't be able to present. Maybe you could share. We do have the graph of this is just about the last 2.5 years. And you can see that, really, particularly over the last 6 to 7 months.
Bear with us here 1 minute. Share screen.
All right, so there's the graph. And what you're looking at, the green line is the 180-day average. So that's the flow goes back to May of 20. The blue line is sort of a trend line. So as you can see, there's a slight downward pitch to that blue line. The yellow line is the 90% design flow trigger. So that's at 16.2 MGD. And then the orange line is the 18 MGD design capacity of the facility. So as you can see, this, we're well below those trigger lines, and we've got a downward trend that really is going on for the last few months. And that is all I have, unless anyone has any questions. As always, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions? Mr. Constantine?
Yeah, that downward trend, to what do you attribute that?
I think it's probably multiple pieces. It's never that one valve that you found closed. It's a lot of the efforts in the lining project the city's been implementing over the last year. The weather has been less. Last year was a very severe weather year, which created the upward trend. We're seeing a little bit more normal, if not below normal, precipitation patterns this year. But I do think a lot of it is coming from the lining projects and the improvements that the city's been making on the collection system.
Yeah, we last year we identified 13 catch basins that the DPW WPCA team was able to disconnect from the sanitary sewer. One of the items out of the consent order for our collection system master plan is we are going to have a catch basin disconnect program. So we've identified, I want to say approximately 38 catch basins we're going to look to disconnect from the sanitary sewer over the next 5 years. So that again is direct. When it rains, that flow comes directly into the collection system to our pump stations and treatment plant. By sending those catch basins to the storm drain system, eliminates that excessive flow from the sanitary sewer. So that's one program. We're also constantly, right now, Green Mountain is closing out a lining project, but we're in design of another lining project down in the Bell Island and Samus Street sewer sheds. So there we're gonna, by lining, secured in place pipe lining, you prolong the life of the asset. A lot of those assets were installed in 1960s or a little bit older. And at the same time, you reduce infiltration that can enter in from joints or cracks in the pipe. So again, prolonging asset preservation and reducing flow to the treatment plant is some of our goals.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome, showing a decrease. I'll bet if you showed precipitation, it would correlate with the pumps, and if you got rid of 0 to 8 MGD, you'd be able to exaggerate that blue line more and show more of a decrease too.
It's all in the scale, right?
Any other questions on that? No? Okay.
All right, keep moving along. You're all set, John?
I am, thank you.
Did you want to talk about Orchard Street?
Actually, we could quickly, yeah, we are finalizing preparations for the Orchard Street lining project. So that's actually going to start in the next few weeks, the initial phases of it. There's a lot of coordination with the residents and along the path of that work. So I know Nelia and our team have been working closely along with Green Mountain to make sure that there's a minimal impact as possible and taking everybody's concerns into consideration. So we're excited to get it done. Got a good team together, got some very detailed plans, and hopefully next time we speak, we'll either be close to completion on that job or certainly well into it.
Correct. It's about a 4-week project is their anticipated schedule. This week they've mobilized. They're starting to set up some of the bypass pumping and piping. And then next week, we're anticipating our first liner insert on Orchard Street. But we have a call to that tomorrow to confirm exact day or where our plan is for next week with liner number 1. Moving along, under reports. Item A is our typical munis report. A copy is included in the package that we sent out. If anybody has any questions? Otherwise, I'll move on to the next item, where we included a draft of the fiscal year 23-24 capital budget request, which we've previously shared with the board last year. For fiscal year 23-24, where the WPCA is requesting $10.85 million related to collection system rehabilitation. And most of that money is linked to the consent order that we have rehabilitation to do in the next 5 years from the state. And then the other item is the draft fiscal year 23-24 operating budget, copies included, and that's basically, this is in conjunction with the financial model we presented earlier tonight. On the revenue side, we included 3.5% increase in revenue. Same with the expenditures for the most part. We did for the Veolia contract, I think we assumed 4% increase, just because there's two components. There's a CPI increase factor and an ECI increase factor to their contract. So we assumed 4% in the model. Last year, I think it was like 5.4%. For this current fiscal year. Other than that, those were the major changes. The debt service, there is no new debt service, so it's based on last year's anticipation schedule. So that is still decreasing at the moment, but like the model said, we are going to be looking to borrow in the near future. Does anybody have any questions?
C.
Item C, discussion on WPCA engineering projects. I have only, for this month, I only included the facility plan update. With the holidays, not much has been happening, but Arcadis and Veolia and WPCA have been going through some process data of the treatment plant based on the aeration tanks, looking at some additional sampling just for their process model that they're using for the facility plan update. So we'll probably have it a little bit more next month to report, but for now, that's all the information I have on the facility plan update. The next item is a discussion on the construction projects, and Nadia actually has a photo presentation. It's actually open if you want to pop it open and share the screen.
So we'll do it.
You gotta go back to Zoom.
Oh, I'm not.
Yeah, hit escape.
Okay.
Yep. All the way to the right.
Got it. So we have some capital improvement updates for this month. We have some collection system updates on the Wall Street Night Street project and the Dreamy Hollow project. On the Wall Street Night Street project, in the photo on the right, you can see that the upper portion of that elliptical concrete chamber has been removed, and that stormwater flows. The concrete chamber that has been constructed kind of acts as that stormwater pipe. On the photo on the left here, you can see this 30-inch sewer line that's been constructed within this concrete chamber. This photo here, you can see them placing three precast concrete panels that act as the roof of the chamber. These are the 3 concrete panels fully installed. Upcoming work includes pouring the concrete framing for these panels, as well as pouring the sanitary sewer manholes located on this side of the chamber and this side of the chamber. And the inside of the chamber can now be accessed by this 36-inch manhole opening. On the Dreamy Hollow project, so this project consists of drainage and sanitary sewer improvements. This is some of the drainage updates, which consist of the RCP culvert installation. So you see the culverts being placed into the trench, and we have the culverts in the trench shown, and the contractor is averaging 2 to 3 culvert installations per day, and this is along Farley Road. That's all we have for the collection system updates for this month. Thank you.
Now, yeah. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. That vault? It's incredible. What's gonna be on top of that? You're just gonna pave over it?
It's a parking lot, correct?
Parking lot? Looks like a parking lot with all those buildings around it. And the sewer line, what is that? What is the encasement on that? Is that some kind of FRP or something? That outside, it looked like it was,
I want to coated steel, I believe.
a what?
It's coated steel outer pipe, so we
It's
have.
steel. With
Yes.
like, okay, with like an epoxy coating or something? Okay,
Correct. Because we had to go through, it's 110 by 77 inch diameter oval storm pipe. So
wow,
in order to maintain the design flow rate,
sure,
we had to do a big chamber like that. And that way,
Understood.
when as the flow comes up, it can spread out and maintain
right.
the CFS
You still
without
have the,
impacting it. And we made sure we had secondary containment if that pipe needs to be rehabbed in the future. 30,
okay,
40, 50 years beyond.
understood. So, when will you know? When will this be tested? Do we need a 50-year storm, or 25, 100?
Well, we were in construction during Ida.
Did it work?
If it was flowing,
It didn't come out of the ground.
but it was early. No, that we didn't hit the max capacity of that pipe.
Beautiful. So you know it's working. You know it's gonna work.
At least during that storm, it worked.
That was a bad storm.
Yes.
Anybody else have any questions? No? All right, E. 632, E.
Yes, we're, to date is $38,577 in adjustments.
Any questions on that? Item F,
There are no information copies.
no information copies. Does anybody have any questions on anything that's in the agenda or not in the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn item number 9?
I'm sorry, I should have asked the question previously. On the capital, on the construction projects, what's the estimated completion dates on those two projects?
We're back on D, right?
So
Yeah,
the
we
Dreamy.
did.
Item D, 1 and 2.
Thanks.
So the Dreamy Hollow, Mr. Burnett, it is actually a public works project because it's a drainage project. We've also upgrade on sewer line in a part of it. That will be December of this year. That we are planning to finish the project. And then,
So the Wall Street to Ninth Street project, we anticipating most of the work to be done early spring of this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'll go back to item number 9. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Igneri gets it. All in favor? Aye. I won't call it out. It's unanimous. I won't do roll call. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you on the 21st. We're gonna do another Tuesday meeting for a public hearing and another meeting. Thanks and have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night,
Nice.
everyone.
Nice to see you.